Do you ever make a mess of things and think to yourself, how did I get here? Sometimes the scenarios you run through in life are setting you up to fail. In this week's talk, we'll show you how to spot those, how to avoid them, and when necessary, how to escape them.
In the early morning hours of January 27th, 1896, the overcrowded suburban village of Taylorstown, Wales, was awakened to a terrifying sound. Too loud to be thunder, and not repetitive enough to be thunder. Residents got up at about 5:30 in the morning, quickly running outside and looking in the direction that they feared the sound was coming from. And when they saw a huge billow of black smoke rising up into the sky, they knew, every mother, every wife, knew exactly what had happened. There was an accident at the mine. See, Taylorstown was a coal mining town. And there were, at any point in time, hundreds of men underground doing controlled explosions to break apart coal and bring it back up. Well, one of those explosions went wrong, and 57 miners were killed in the accident. Now, at the time, there was a researcher in Scotland named John Scott Haldane, and he had been investigating a series of mysterious deaths in coal mines. As soon as he heard about it, he contacted the mining company and he said, save whoever you can, but anyone that you find who's dead, leave them there. Don't even touch them. I need to conduct an investigation. He brought his team down. And sure enough, most of those who perished were either killed in the blast of the explosion, or crushed to death under the rocks, or suffocated when they were trapped into a small room with no oxygen. But there was one room in this mine where there were 4 men, and there was plenty of space in the room. The investigators, they saw the bodies, and there was not one blemish on them. There was enough oxygen in the room for the oil lamp that they had been carrying to still be burning days later, and yet 4 of them lay huddled dead. This researcher, Professor Haldane, he took their bodies, they autopsied them, and he said, exactly what I thought. My theory is confirmed. These men did suffocate to death, not because they ran out of oxygen, but because there was a high presence of carbon monoxide. And he made a rather unorthodox recommendation to mining companies there. He said, look, there's this dangerous gas, carbon monoxide. It causes people to suffocate, and the danger is you can't smell it, you can't taste it, you can't see it, you have no idea it's there until it's too late. And he recommended that miners take down into the mines with them a canary in a cage. See, canaries have these little hearts and lungs that are much more susceptible to things like carbon monoxide poisoning. And what would happen is these guys would take a canary down into the mines with them, and it would be chirping and singing. And then when they looked at the canary and realized that it had stopped chirping and stopped singing and fallen off its perch, they knew it's time to get out of here now because there's dangerous gas in the air. It was such an effective strategy that by 1911, it became national policy. It was mandated that before you went into a mine, you must take 2 caged canaries with you. They were so good at detecting it that even after what we have like today, modern day carbon monoxide detectors, even after these were admitted, many miners still chose to bring canaries down into the mines with them. They said, well, these things have batteries that could fail, but the bird never fails. If it falls over, the bird and we go running back to the surface. Saved countless lives. And caged canary, we might have to turn Mr. Canary off there. It's cute. Caged canaries were still useful up until 1996. People were still taking the birds down with them. It's a powerful way to save lives because there were scenarios these guys were in and they had no way of knowing how dangerous it was until something alerted them of the presence. And when they found out, they had to run. Now, we've been in a series about toxic things, toxic words, toxic thoughts, toxic labels. Today, I want to talk to you about toxic scenarios. Because just like these miners in the carbon monoxide gas, there are times, there are places you find yourself in, and maybe you've had some of these before, where you look up and you say, how did I get here? How did it come to this? I never intended to go here. And sometimes the environment you're in is the thing that's pushing you there. See, nobody stands at the altar looking at their new spouse and dreaming of ways to cheat on them and have an affair. But a lot of people end up doing that. Nobody holds their new baby in the delivery room and dreams of ways of abusing and neglecting them. But many end up doing just that. Nobody goes out to hang out with the guys and have a drink or two, planning to kill somebody driving drunk, but many end up doing that. Nobody buys that one cool thing that's on sale, planning to be up to their eyeballs in debt and lose their house, but many end up doing just that. There's so many things that you don't intend to do, but you end up doing anyway. And one of the things that makes it so difficult to avoid a bad scenario is being in the presence of something that's dangerous for you. Being in a scenario where you are more likely to hurt yourself or to hurt others. I want to talk to you today about how to see those, how to avoid those, and when necessary, how to escape them. And we're going to do it by looking at a guy in the Bible who did just that. His name is Joseph. He lived about 2,000 years before Jesus, and he's actually an ancestor of Jesus. We'll have the words up on the screen, or you can have it in the Bible app if you've got that. If you're watching at home, we'll put it up there on your screen too. Moses recorded Joseph's story in Genesis 39, and it goes like this. When Joseph was taken to Egypt by the Ishmaelite traders, he was purchased by Potiphar, an Egyptian officer. Okay, Mr. Bird, we'll have you back in a minute. He was purchased as a slave in Egypt. The Lord, verse 2, was with Joseph, so he succeeded in everything he did as he served in the home of his Egyptian master. So Potiphar gave Joseph complete administrative responsibility over everything he owned. Now think about this, okay? Joseph at this point is an older teenage or possibly early 20s young man who's only ever been the rich kid who gets everything handed to him. It's okay. How many of you guys say, hey, I would turn my investment portfolio and the care of my house over to a 17-year-old boy? Okay? This is an exceptional person. God was with him. The Bible says with Joseph there, and this is amazing, that this high-ranking general, he didn't worry about a thing except what kind of food to eat. Now Joseph, the Bible says, was a very handsome and well-built young man. And Potiphar's wife soon began to look at him lustfully. Everybody say, uh-oh. Uh-oh. Yeah. Okay, he wasn't just smart, he was hot. That's the Bible's version of it. He said hot. Okay, Bible does not give physical descriptions very often, but they went out of their way to say, look, he's a good-looking guy. Okay, husband's always away doing official things, and the wife's like, ooh, man, he's looking so good. Okay. Come and sleep with me, she demanded. But Joseph refused. Look, he told her, my master trusts me with everything in his entire household. No one here has more authority than I do. He's held back nothing from me except you because you are his wife. How could I do such a wicked thing? And then he says this. This is a clue, okay? This is something we need to learn from. He says, it would be a great sin against God. Now, we don't know how many years he had been living in Egypt as a slave when he said this, but it was long enough. Okay? It had been a long time since he had been with any of his family. There was no Bible app back then. There was no Egyptian church he could go to. And yet, he still had the sensitivity to realize this is something that's dangerous to me. This is something that God said I should not do, and I can't do it. Not because, lady, look, you have terrible breath, or like, oh, sorry, I'm not into that. Okay, I don't do cougar. No, he says it would be a great sin against God. I can't do this. And here's the first thing that we can learn from him. Okay? If you want to avoid scenarios that are going to drive you to make terrible mistakes to destroy your life, you have to stay alert. Write this down in your notes. You have to stay alert. You have to keep your canary healthy. Okay? These little birds, historians tell us, and it's funny saying historians about the 20th century, but that's the point where we are now. Historians tell us that some of the miners would actually, they treated these things like pets. They would name them. They took good care of them. By the way, they were very insistent on, as soon as the bird passed out and fell over, they brought the bird with them, and they would try to recuperate the bird. They didn't just throw them away. Oh, well, it killed another one. Okay? They took good care of them. And here's why. Here's why. Because if you're a miner, your life depends on this thing being healthy. If you bring into the mine a bird that's hasn't been fed in a few weeks and just tends to fall, okay, you might run at the wrong time. If you bring in a bird that's barely hanging on to life, you may not get the warning you need. If you bring in a pile of bird bones because you haven't fed that, whoops, oh, I forgot, that's okay. You got to keep it healthy. And here's an amazing thing. So Joseph is living far away from friends and family, far away from all of his social support, but he kept enough of a relationship with God together to recognize when something that society said was normal was not God's normal, and he said, wait, I can't do this. God said I should not. It's a sin against him. We talked last week a lot about normals. And culture doesn't have the same idea of normal as God does. If you missed it last week, you should go back and watch. It'll help you. Society has a different idea of what normal is, and it shaped one song or show or story at a time. Something that you may already know, but maybe you didn't know this. In the ancient Near East, in ancient times all over the world, in the 1800s in the United States, having sex with a slave was normal. It happened all the time. In fact, for many of these cultures, part of the appeal of buying a slave is you get to have someone who's not allowed to say no. And what she asked him to do was not right, and it was not good, but it wasn't weird or unusual. He may not have been the only slave that she made that demand to. He may have gotten himself in trouble with the master's wife by saying, why would you say no? It's the easiest job. I can imagine the other slave saying, dude, are you kidding me? This is the easiest task you're ever going to be given. Just do it and make her happy. No, I can't. It's not right. There are scenarios that seem normal that are dangerous for you, and if you want to avoid them, the first thing you have to do is you have to stay alert. You have to keep this canary healthy. What does that mean, Chris? Should I buy a canary? No. Okay, I think you figured that out. You got to keep your relationship with God healthy. You have to keep a regular routine of engaging with the Bible. I love the Bible app. It doesn't have to be that. It could be a printed Bible. It could be a different app. You could just Google Bible verses. We're looking at ways this summer to help give you some daily insights to the Bible, but you've got to do more than just Sunday. None of you would have one healthy meal a week and say, there, I'm eating healthy. It's McDonald's the rest of the week, but this week it's salad. Okay, it's not enough. It's got to be consistent. None of you would go to the gym one day a week and say, there, I'm going to get really strong and fit. It's got to be consistent. It's the same with your spiritual health. So if you want to avoid dangerous situations, number one, stay alert, keep your canary healthy. But once you have that status of alertness, you have to take action whenever the thing stops chirping. So look at what happens to Joseph, all right? So he realizes this is a bad scenario. He says, hey, lady, look, no offense, I can't do that. God said no. Verse 10, but she kept putting pressure on Joseph day after day. And watch what he did. He refused to sleep with her, and look at this. And he kept out of her way as much as possible. Something else really valuable that we can learn from what he did. Write this down in your notes. You need to stay away and go out of your way to avoid toxic scenarios. You got to go out of your way to do it. It takes effort. It takes intentionality. It's not Joseph accidentally wasn't around when she was there. It's where he goes and, okay, I need to clean this room. And then the wife walks in. He's like, nope, I'm not cleaning that. Now I'm going out to take care of the goats. Okay. He's staying away on purpose. Look, all of you guys have people in your life that you intentionally stay away from, right? You all know the person. If you need to get home in time for dinner, and there's that one person in the office that just doesn't pick up on the social cues when you're trying to leave, and they're still talking about this thing that's growing on their foot, and you're like, bro, I don't care. Okay? You all know how to tactfully avoid, okay, people. You got to go out of your way to avoid scenarios where you're likely to fall. And this might be inconvenient, and it might be exhausting, and people might not understand, and it might make you look weird, but it might save you from making a horrible decision. Write this down in your notes. The best way to beat temptation is to avoid it altogether. You want to make absolutely sure that you don't get drunk? Don't drink. Problem solved. You want to make absolutely sure that you don't go too far with your girlfriend? Don't go halfway there with your girlfriend. Problem solved. You want to make sure that you don't incur so much credit card debt that your spouse ends up leaving you because you are out of control? Then, okay, cut up the card. The best way to win against temptation is just to avoid it altogether. Jesus said this, so his disciples came to him. He said, Lord, teach us how to pray. You are so good at praying. Tell us what to pray. And here's something Jesus said that you should really take note of. Matthew 6:13. He said, pray like this. Put that up on the screen. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. Lead us not into temptation. Very intentional here. Jesus did not say, pray, God, make me strong to stand up to temptation, even though that's useful. He said, you want to know something you should pray? God, lead me away from temptation so it doesn't come up at all. And this is couched in, all right, he's saying, as often as you say, God, forgive me of my sins, as often as you say, God, I need food to live on, as often as you're saying, God, help me with my problems, say, God, lead me away from temptation, because there are scenarios where you're just likely to fold. You're likely to lose. I was reading a little bit this week about Ted Bundy, serial killer. And Ted, near the end of his life, talked to reporters, and he said, if you don't know the name Ted Bundy, don't research it at night. Horrible guy, did awful things to dozens and dozens of women in America over years. And Ted said, before I killed these ladies, I had to drink enough so that the conscience in me saying I shouldn't do this was muted, so that the entity inside me that wanted to carry out these things could do what I wanted to do. Okay? Bad scenarios. Listen, you are not smarter or wiser or better tempered when you're drunk. Maybe you just shouldn't get drunk at all. Nothing good comes out of it. Maybe you shouldn't have that app on your phone at all, because nothing good comes out of it. Maybe you shouldn't even open the Micro Center email. But dude, the new processor's on sale. I know, I get the Micro Center emails. Maybe you shouldn't go down the sale aisle at Target if you're going to spend yourself into oblivion. Maybe you shouldn't have that conversation yet with your kid whenever they get sassy. Maybe you need to just step out of the room. Maybe you need to start recognizing scenarios where you're likely to fall and say, I'm going to avoid this altogether. That's what Joseph did. Day after day, she comes into the room, he goes out. She's outside, he's inside. He's avoiding as much as possible. Avoid as much as possible. Sometimes, though, that's not going to be enough. Verse 11. It's back to Joseph here. One day, however, remember, he's avoiding this woman as much as possible. One day, no one else was around when he went in to do his work. And she came and grabbed him by his cloak, demanding, "Come on, sleep with me." Joseph tore himself away, but he left his cloak in her hand, and watch what he did. He ran from the house. When the bird fell off the perch, he didn't say, "Oh, well, that's strange. Well, maybe we can coach him. Hey, buddy, hey, do you need a snack? Hey, wake up, wake up, wake up," right? He knew, danger, 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 I need to run. And he got out of Dodge as fast as possible. And when you recognize you're in a toxic situation, when you recognize you're in a scenario where you're likely to do things you don't want to do, when you recognize that you really like the attention that that guy at work keeps giving you, and he's married and you're married, but he's not getting what he wants at home, and your husband seems to be too busy or whatever, and this guy thinks that I'm cute and he's admiring me all the time and I love the way, get out! Run! Because you're likely to fall. Last thing to write down is this. Well, last main point to write down is this. You need to stay alive. When the pressure's on, just run. Just run. Okay? Joseph ran through town in his underwear. Okay? Right? She tore the cloak off. He runs out in the loincloth, just runs. Just imagine. You're out there, this is a nice part of town. This is one of the wealthiest people in town. You know, imagine the nice neighborhood where everyone's got the manicured lawn, and all of a sudden some dude comes, apparently really good looking dude, comes running out in the loincloth. Okay, I'm sure it made a scene. But he did what it took to escape temptation. And you got to understand, think about this. He is obviously a well-built, strong young man. She's a woman, and unless she's like, the weightlifting champion of Egypt, there is no danger that she's going to physically rape him. Why did he run? Yeah, because he's a young man. He's a single young guy. And this lady's like, come on, come on, come on. Now's the time. Let's do this right now. Bible doesn't tell us what state of dress she was in. He's like, I cannot handle this right now. And he got out and he saved himself from doing a terrible, terrible, stupid thing that probably would have gotten him killed. When the pressure's on, you need to recognize it and just run. 1 Corinthians 6:18, we'll put it up on the screens. We're going to go back to back on these verses. Paul says, run from sexual sin. And then he broadens it out in chapter 10, verse 13. He said, whenever you're tempted, God, He will show you a way out so that you can endure. Well, Chris, I don't want a way out. I want to punch the devil in the face. That's cool, okay? Any of you guys go to youth group in the late 90s and he's under my feet, he's under my feet. We used to love this song. We're stomping on the devil, okay? Sounds cool for a song. But the Bible says, if you're in a scenario where you are in a weakened state, just run, just get out. Let me give you something that seems like it wouldn't be that big of a deal. And I can tell you from experience, I can tell you from a long time in full-time ministry talking to people, this helps more than you realize. Write this down. Whenever possible, when you're tempted, physically leave the situation. Just actually take your body and go somewhere else. You like that guy and you're dating. You're like, I hope this is going somewhere, but I'm not sure if it is. And things start to get a little hot and heavy. You need a bathroom break immediately. Sorry, I got to pee for 20 minutes. Okay? Come back out when I'm thinking straight again. When you see all of your friends have got the brand new cars and you're like, I don't care what car prices are like. I need one of those. Physically leave and come back the next day. It's amazing when a salesman is talking to you. It's amazing how powerful it is to say, let me think about that. And you go home and you sleep on it and you say, what was I thinking? I don't want to take on that debt. Just leave. Just physically leave the scenario. There's so many times when you're you right now, You would never want to do that. You right now would never think, I'm going to slap my child right across the face and leave a bruise on their cheek. None of you would think that right now. But when you haven't had enough to sleep, and maybe you had a drink or two, and it's been a really hard week, and you're so tired of the sass and the disrespect, and you just ask them to wash the dishes, and they mouth off, it's right there in the moment. You know what, kid? Whoa, what did I do? You got to recognize when you are in a vulnerable position and say, I'm going to physically leave until I can calm down. I remember as a kid, my parents have a great relationship, great marriage, great parents. I remember, healthy marriages sometimes have arguments. I remember sometimes as a kid and a teen, mom and dad would get into a heated argument. And many times, dad would suddenly need to go down to the gas station and get a Dr. Pepper. He likes Dr. Pepper because he is wise man, okay? Best soft drink ever, right? And he would come back, and things were calm, and they'd talk it out. Well, that seems a little unnecessary, right? All my life, my father never once raised his fist against my mother. He never once called her those words that I'm not going to say from the pulpit, but you know what they are in your mind. He never once beat me or my brother, but he was smart enough to recognize when that Bruce Banner starts becoming Hulk, I'm going to get out of the scenario right now so I can calm down and not make a mistake I'm going to regret for my life. There are scenarios where you're weak. You need to just run. So whenever possible, physically leave. And write this down. When you can't physically escape, you need to mentally leave the situation. There are times when you can't physically get out of there. Dude, you don't understand. She's in my biology class, and I can't just run out of the class, and she won't stop wearing those outfits. And I'm like, ooh, boy. Okay, I need some anatomy lessons here. Okay, I can't stop. I can't leave. Okay, when you can't physically, come on, we know what people are like. When you can't physically leave, mentally leave the situation. So all through this series, I've been consulting with experts in their fields, and mostly counselors and psychologists. This week I talked to a guy named Tim Perry. Used to volunteer with him helping out at the coroner's office. Tim founded a ministry to coroners who were struggling, who had been traumatized by the things that they were forced to see every day. You don't realize every time somebody in Pekin dies, county coroner has to come and collect their body and determine why they died. And sometimes they do not die well. Okay, a lot of dark stuff that people see. And I talked to Tim about physically leaving, but sometimes you can't physically leave. Some of these guys and girls, it was in their mind, and it would come to them when they were laying down to sleep at night. These thoughts would come back to them in these dark moments. And here's what he said. He said, you have to understand the way God wired you. This is really going to help somebody on the live streamer. And so listen to this. He said, your heart, your blood flow, is the lever to regulate your brain. Use it to restore calm and balance. Listen, none of you right now are thinking, you know what? When about 11:45 p.m. tonight, I'm going to take those hurtful things that my husband said to me, 6 years ago, and I'm going to think about them again and again, and I'm going to tell myself I'm a failure as a wife, I'm a failure as a mother, I'm ugly and fat and old and used up, and nobody will ever love me, I can't do anything right, and I'm just going to sit in that and roll until I cry myself to sleep. None of you want to do that right now. But some of you know what it's like when that train leaves the station and it's a runaway train, and I can't stop thinking. I can't stop this self-destructive stuff. I don't want to cut and hurt myself, but that's the only way that I can cope. Well, it's not the only way that you can cope. See, it's hard for your brain to tell your brain, stop it. But what Tim said is your brain can tell your heart, chill, and your heart sends that signal back up to your brain and says, hey, calm down. Let's think about this rationally for a minute. Okay? 2 simple things. These are really practical. Write both of these down. You need to try these. Thoughts start getting away from you. Number 1, control your breath. 3 seconds in, 4 seconds out for 10 minutes. Breathing, Chris, really? Yes, really. Because here's what happens. When you are in a moment of anger and, oh man, that man, that's how many times did I say don't do that? And here we are again, and you're ready to just, you're going to chop that guy in half with your words. Okay? Your heart rate is going. It's going. Your brain is like fight or flight. It's fight time. Okay? But if you calm your breath down, it'll slow your heart rate back down to normal. It'll slow the blood flow to your brain back down, and you're sending your body a signal that says, hey, chill out. Let's think about this for a minute. There's power that even if you can't physically leave. Okay? Something that helps me, I'll try, unless I have bad allergies, I'll breathe in through my nose. I'll breathe out through my mouth. And I just focus on that until things start to calm down. Okay? Here's something else that helps. Use all 5 senses to refocus your mind. Here's what Tim said he suggests to guys and girls when they are in a spot they can't physically leave, but their mind is starting to go down this path and it's going to hurt them and they're going to end in a destructive play. Okay, listen, you don't realize how high the suicide rate is for coroners. Disturbingly high. And Tim is saving lives, and he says, here's what I tell them to do. Imagine a place where you like to go, where you are at peace. Maybe it's the beach. Maybe it's sitting out by the lake. Maybe it's walking through the yard when the trees are, okay? Imagine, okay, when you get to that spot, I need to physically leave. I can't stop thinking about this. I can't stop, okay? Imagine that place. And he said, be as vivid as possible. What does it smell like there? Take a minute just right now. What's a place you love to go to? We love to go to Mexico. There's this cool little island off the coast of Mexico where there are no jet skis allowed, and it's just quiet. Oh, it's awesome. What does it sound like there? Is there music in the background? Is the wind blowing through the trees? Is the beach rolling? Is the waves rolling in and out? What does it smell like? What does it feel like? Is it warm? Do you feel the sunlight on your skin? Okay, be as vivid as possible. Why? This seems silly. It's not silly. You're diverting your mind until the Hulk comes back down to Bruce Banner and you're thinking clearly. Because right now, in your current frame of mind, you would never say those things to your husband. But in the moment, you would. And you want to bring yourself out of that dangerous moment right now. You want to allow the Holy Spirit, as we wrap this up, you want to allow the Holy Spirit to highlight the danger of that moment and say, hey, chill. Stop. You need to get out of the scenario and calm down because you're about to do something you're going to regret. You got to keep this thing healthy. You have to stay alert. You have to stay away from the scenarios as much as possible. And when you find yourself in them, you got to run. And I understand that this is difficult, saying, the guy up here saying, just run away. I don't want to run away. Chris, I don't want an escape ladder. I want a spiked club to beat the devil over the head with. Doesn't the Bible say, Chris, to resist the devil and he will flee? Yes, it does. Doesn't the Bible say, greater is he that's in me than he is in the world? Yes, it does, and that is true. But in the moment when Joseph was being tempted, it wasn't whether he was stronger than Satan, it was whether he was stronger than Joseph. Once you're in that moment, your blood starts running hot, and that anger wells up inside of you, and your fists start to clench. It's not about whether you're stronger than Satan, it's about whether you're stronger than you. And statistically, you're probably not stronger than you. Satan is the one who tempts you, but the Bible also says it's your own passions and desires that lead you to sin. He just gives that nudge and you take it the rest of the way. And recognizing when you're not likely to make a good decision, get out while you can. Escape and survive. Here's the amazing thing. These little birds, over the span of about 70 years, Experts tell us they saved over 1 million human lives just from having a canary in there and paying attention and saying when the thing starts to get dangerous, run. But it wouldn't have done anything if the people started, well, yeah, he's only been off the perch for 10 minutes. I think we at least have another half hour before, right? You got to run. You got to run. Listen, running from temptation, avoiding bad scenarios, it's not weakness, it's wisdom. It's you being determined, I'm going to honor God with my life, and I don't want to go down that path. And sometimes the only way for you to not go down that path is to not take the first step down that path. You've got to, with God's help, you got to stay attuned with what he says is normal. And if this thing is unhealthy, I'm just going to avoid it. So this week, some of you guys need to just decide, I'm not going to go out with the guys after work. Sorry, guys. I'm going to go home and be with my wife. And I'm going to come home sober, not 3 drinks in. It might make a difference. Some of you, one of the smartest things, husbands and wives, that you can do is to develop a culture that says when we are talking about something really heated, we might decide we're going to table this argument until tomorrow because I'm not in a frame of mind to do this right now. Well, I want to talk about it now. Okay. You might end up with bruises. Maybe it's smart to say, I'm not in a good frame of mind to have this argument. Take it from someone who used to deal with self-destructing, self-critical thoughts that just rolled and rolled and rolled until they got out of control. I noticed as a teenager, I only get into this thought pattern when it's late and I'm tired. Sometimes you start feeling that and you're like, you know what? We're going to talk about this tomorrow because I think I'm going to be in a different frame of mind. You know what? Instead of stepping on the scales after a long day when I'm already tired and depressed because work's not going well, I'm going to get up in the morning and have a shower and have breakfast and have a cup of coffee. And then I'm going to step on the scale and say, okay, a lot more work to do. Because I'm in a different frame of mind. It's not weakness, it's wisdom. You got to be aware of those scenarios. And as God helps you and as he taps you on the shoulder and says, hey, danger, danger, run. Just run. Because God is with you, but it's your feet that have to do the running. It's your decisions as he leads you to avoid and go out of your way to avoid those scenarios. Avoid them and escape them and make good choices. Because God wants you to win and he's helping you every step of the way. But you gotta listen.
Hey there, just wanted to take a minute to say thanks for watching. If a friend sent you this link, it's because they believe what we talked about today is going to make a positive impact in your life. And if it did, there's probably somebody that you care about who could benefit from it. So take a minute to share this video with somebody. Post it to your timeline or send them a direct link. And if you're able, take a minute to give using the link at the bottom of the description on this video. One last thing. Maybe you feel a tug at your soul and you're ready to take the next step in your spiritual life and form a relationship with God. We've got folks here who would love to talk with you about it. So just text prayer to the number on your screen and we'll follow up with you. It's also in the description on this video in case that helps. Thanks for watching and we'll see you next time.